But of course we don't want that, so I'm going to use the pre-made vector 0. Scale. This, since it's a vector 2, we can scale it in the x and y direction. In this case, however, again, I just want old basic. Effects. If I can stop flubbing the autocomplete here. You can choose to have none, flip vertically, or flip horizontally. That's very nice. You can have one image that points to the right, and if you want it to point to the left, you just flip it. But in this case, we want none. And then the final draw option is the layer depth, as it says here, 0 front, 1 back. Like I said, it's easier to remember. If you do sort mode front to back, that means high numbers are drawn on top. And of course, that is 1.0. And I'm actually going to go ahead and delete out this line because I don't need it, nor do I want it in there. Now you might think, okay, well that should make the bottom card appear on top. No, got a couple of things going wrong here. The biggest problem is that we've got two separate sprite batches running. We've got this sprite batch. Actually, we've got 3 sprite batches running. We have this sprite batch, and then each draw component has its own sprite batch running here. So that's part of the problem right there. It's best really not to have this split out amongst 3 sprite batches. The other problem is that we're comparing apples to oranges. I will level with you guys. I have no idea how the game component deals with this draw order variable. I don't know. I have no idea if it's dividing it by max int or anything. I can't actually find much documentation on this. So I have no idea what value I should make this in order to get it to sort correctly between those other 2 cards. Now the first thing I want to deal with is merging everything down into a single sprite batch. This is also a speed optimization as well. Not so important on the PC, but very important on the Xbox. As remember, when you call base.draw, that is when the draw methods are called for all of your components. So I can move my sprite batch.end below base.draw. Now I can come into draw component, and I can comment out my begin and end for those. So now I've got one sprite batch being called. And as you can see, because now I've got one sprite batch being called, it does now have this on top. But trying to figure out how to make that appear in the middle, that's painful. I tried. I couldn't figure it out. So we need to look at a little bit different way of handling this. This is where my personal concept of a layer comes in, which I'm going to put in the draw component. I've already got 2 of my variables set up here for this. As I've got a public int layer, and I've got a max layer of 100. So basically the idea here is that, again, using front to back sorting, high numbers are drawn on top, low numbers are drawn on the bottom. I can now have 100 layers that I can slot things and draw them on. Now you don't have to have things all on different layers. You can put multiple objects on the same layer, but when you have multiple objects on the same draw order, then it reverts back to drawing in which the order they were added in. So I've got my layer. I've got a max layer of 100. Now we're going to be dividing layer by max layer to get our 0 to 1 fraction. Be careful about making max layer too big. Honestly, 100 layers is more than you probably need. If you need more than 100 layers, you've got issues with your design. You might want to increase it maybe to 10,000 if you want to have very large gaps between your layers. But you need to be careful with this. Floats are numerically unstable. They're numerically unstable. In other words, if you get your values too large, say you want max layer to be 1,000,000, floats don't always manage to tell the difference between 1,000,000 divided by 1,000,000 or 999,999 divided by 1 million. Floats do not have infinite resolution. You will miss values. So be careful about making your max layer values too high. I have not tested this, but if you're doing a max layer of, say, 10,000, and generally speaking, your increments are increments of at least 10 between layers, you should be safe, but I have not tested that. Personally, I like 100 increments of 10. That gives me 10 layers. Honestly, if I can't figure out how to do this in 10 layers, I got to redesign something. That being said, don't actually make it 10. Because Murphy's Law states that if you make it 10 layers, you will suddenly discover that, yes, you do in fact need an 11th layer to make things more sane, and now you have to go through and shift all of your layers. Not good. All right, so now we got this layer and max layer concept. Let's modify our drawing command down here. I'm going to comment out the simple version, put this one in, and, oh, right, commented out the wrong thing. So we need to put in a new sprite batch here. I'm going to hop over to game. I'm going to grab this sprite batch.draw because it pretty much has most everything that I need already. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to paste that in. Now, obviously, I don't want a new vector because this draw component has a location value. And instead of this, I want layer divided by max layer. And now I can very easily modify game 1 to use the exact same numbering system. I've got an nth layer. I've got this layer set to 90. Let me modify this here. So I'm going to modify this to layer equals 100 because I want that on top. I'm going to modify this to layer equals 80. And then let's temporarily modify this one to 70. And make sure that I put that in there. And change this to layer divided by draw component dot max layer. Now if I run it, I've got the dragon, then I've got the other evil guy, and then I've got the player. I can now come back up here and change this. Okay, no, I want the player actually between the dragon and the other bad guy. So I'll change its layer to 90, hit F5, and now we can see by the corners here that it's in the middle. I then decide, okay, well, I actually really want this on top. I can change this to 85. Well, no, not 850, 85. And now that's on top, the dragon's in the middle, and the other evil card is on the very bottom. So that shows a very basic method of how to handle multiple layers. This can be used for lots of things. You can control what layers your buttons draw on. You can control what layers your score is drawn on. You can control what layer basically everything is drawn on, so that way you can have perfect control regardless of when something is added in as to where it is drawn. This can be very useful as projects start getting more complex. And that's it for this tutorial.